All right, so I'm going to explain how I use prepositional phrases to help me decipher sentences. This is number 19 in the practice test we took yesterday. This says, at any meeting, a gavel and a rulebook are useful, for the risks of ruling incorrectly on a procedural question is reduced. There shouldn't be, that's not a period there. Okay, so what they were asking us to do, they had are underlined and they had is underlined, and they wanted to see if those verb tenses were correct. So when I see a big sentence like this, and usually that's one of the first things I do when I come across a sentence, I like to cross out the prepositional phrases, because then what we have left after the prepositional phrases is the bare bones of the sentences. You know, it makes it easier to find the subjects and the verbs of the sentences. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to cross out at any meeting, because so this particular sentence starts with a prepositional phrase. At any meeting. Okay, at's a preposition. A gavel and rulebook are useful. For. Now, for looks like a preposition, and it can be a preposition, but in this case, it is being used as a conjunction. Now, a conjunction sounds like, if you think of conjoined twins, a conjunction joins words or phrases or sentences together. They join things together. So that's why we have the word for here. And actually, and is also a conjunction. Well, I'll talk about that in a minute. But so this is a conjunction because we just have a complete sentence here. A gavel and a rulebook are useful. That's a complete thought. And then we have the next sentence. The risks of ruling incorrectly on a procedural question is reduced. So that's the next part of the sentence. So I would not cross out for the risks, because that is not being used as a preposition there. And it's being used as a conjunction. But the risks of ruling, I would say the risk of ruling incorrectly, that is a prepositional phrase, on a procedural question is also a prepositional phrase. So all we have left here is the risks is reduced. And that is the bare bones of the sentence. Gavel and a rulebook are useful. The risks is reduced. So now we're going to figure out if the tenses are correct. So we have a gavel, which is actually it's one. So if it was a gavel is useful, then that would be correct. And then we have a rulebook is useful. But in this context, it has to be are, and I'll show you why. So, and this is you probably already know this anyways, but just going to draw it for you. Okay, so and is being used to join two things together here, right? And I can't write, okay. So we have the gavel, and there's our little article, and rulebook. So this is another conjunction here, and it's putting these two nouns together and making it plural. A gavel and a rulebook. Okay, a goose and a gander, whatever. It's going to make more than one thing there. And then we have the verb, which is are. Now, this kind of verb is what we would call, it would be called a linking verb, because it is linking useful. Linking verb is usually to be, am, as, are, was, were, okay? Those are linking verbs. Now, this is an adjective that's describing what a gavel, like you could say a useful gavel, a useful rule book. It's describing this. And so if I were to draw this out, I would make a diagonal line, because what that's doing is it's pointing back to this. And because this is in the predicate part of the sentence, rather than the subject, then this is what we call a predicate adjective, because this is an adjective. Okay, I know this is a lot, but there we go. So now we have the predicate adjective. We've got this whole sentence, and so we also know that a gavel and a rulebook are. We know that that is correct in this part of the sentence. So let's go to the next part of the sentence, which is joined by our little conjunction, our conjoined for, okay? And it's going to connect these two sentences together. And here's my little bare bone, backbone, whatever you want to call it. And the noun, the subject is risks, That's the subject, okay? So I'm going to put risks. And I'm going to put the down here. That's my little article. The and are all articles. The risks is reduced. Okay, so now we can look at this. Risks is reduced. Is that correct? Well, we know that does not make sense at all because risks is plural. And so it has to have a plural noun or plural verb. So risks are reduced. So now, just by getting rid of all those distracting words, we are able to see whether or not it is in the correct tense. And as we found on this one, a gavel and a rule book are, that's correct, but risks is reduced was incorrect. So then you could find the appropriate answer. So that's why I like to say that it's really good to understand prepositions and how they work in a sentence, because it's going to help eliminate a lot of things. And later on, also with who and whom, okay, who is related to the subject. It's got to be a subject part of the sentence, and whom is in the predicate part of the sentence. Or sometimes it's different because if you get a question mark, they're going to be mixed. A question sentence, it's going to be mixed up a little bit, and I can show you how to do that later if you want to figure out those kind of sentences, to figure out what the subject and the verb are. But if you can figure out the subjects and the verbs, and you can figure out where the prepositions are and get rid of the prepositions, just cross them off, you're going to be able to figure out whether or not a question is correct. So that's just one little tip, something that I use that helps me out, and I can share more if you're interested. So there we go.